Okay, hi and welcome to episode 3 of the Leadership Zoomcast. Hope everyone's well today and feeling good. Albert, how are you today?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been a quiet week this week, not as busy as normal, but that's good. Nice to have a little bit of downtime, a bit of time to myself. But yeah, it's good, and looking forward to another session here.
And we still haven't got it right with the colouring, have we?
Well, I decided, true story, guys, I decided to change my colours to match Neil's normal purple. And then we just arrived on here this morning and he's blue. So that's okay. That's good.
So about 5 minutes ago, we were in hysterics because Albert came on matching the colours that I normally have, and I'd swapped to a different colour. and we're taking it a bit more seriously this week because I've just gone and told my wife and daughter to be quiet and not shout goodbye as they go out of the house. So you hear the background noise going on as well. But no, it's great. Look, it's great to be back on the Zoomcast and to be talking about leadership again. And really appreciate your feedback and comments. It's really inspiring for us to get some of those feedback and comments. And, you know, I couldn't, but we were just talking, I couldn't believe when I looked this morning that 70 people have viewed the YouTube video that we did last week. Yeah. You know, and when we started this, we never thought we'd get to 70 people viewing, which is, you know, really exciting. You know, who knows what we'll do when we get to 100. It's great, isn't it, Albert?
It's good. And you know, LinkedIn as well, right? There's some names popping up on LinkedIn that I know you and I might have kept touch with over the years or not, but some of them are popping up and commenting and asking questions and stuff. So that's fantastic. Yeah, we've had some good comments, right? We've had some good comments written up, which is worth looking into. So
some really helpful feedback and comments. So please do put comments on and anything that you think would be useful for you. And as we were saying before we started recording, you know, of those 70 views and 54 podcast downloads as well, if one or two of you have took something away that helps you become a better leader for your team or for yourself, then we're really happy with that. Really excited. Yeah. And you know, some of the comments have been really exciting. We got a comment, the first video we did, we got a comment from Slackvana who said, "Would we be her friend?" And I don't know what kind of leadership role she's in, but I thought it was a fascinating comment. I just gave it a thumbs up. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that comment.
I'll leave you to respond to that one, Neil.
So there are a couple of comments, not on YouTube or podcast, but just feedback we've had from people we've spoken to about, you know, the quality of using Zoom and the volume of using a laptop and stuff like that. And I hope it's okay, and that it's, you know, it's okay to get the message across. It's obviously it's not 100%, and we're not planning, or we haven't planned to spend a load of money on buying studio equipment and getting ourselves. I mean, I should have put some powder on this morning so I don't get the light shining off my head if I was taking it too seriously. So we're not going to take it too seriously yet. If we get to 1,000 views, maybe we'll start investing in some proper microphones and stuff. Yeah. Get a logo even or stuff. So we'll.
We might just get coordinated on colours. That will be a start.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be a good start, wouldn't it? Anyway, so topic for today. So we had a comment, and I'll read the comment out, which was put on YouTube the first week, and I thought it was, you know, we want to try and cover topics that are relevant to the people who are listening and watching. So I'll read the comment out, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So. I've worked for and with many good, some average, and 2 downright poor leaders in senior management and executive positions. Some have been really sociable people, others somewhat colder and introvert. But there's one trait that absolutely differentiates the good from the rest: fairness. Fairness is not about being nice, although it is about respect. Fairness is not about being soft, although it is about being supportive. Fairness is not about giving the benefit of the doubt. It is about integrity. Fairness is not about accepting excuses. It is about being clear on what was expected. Fairness is simply that, looking at an individual or a situation and being fair in your views and response. Dictators don't need to worry about fairness as they operate through fear and uncertainty. And that was from someone called PP. I really appreciate your thoughts. So the topic today is fairness. A great opening comments there from that comment on here. Albert, what are your opening thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And look, thank you for those comments, because you've obviously taken a bit of time to put that together, and to share your experience as well is really useful. I think you're right. I mean, Neil and I were talking beforehand. How far do we think we could go on just that topic of fairness? And probably quite a long way. Um, the word integrity came in there. I think that's absolutely right, right? If you act fairly and with integrity, then you generate trust in your team. You generate trust in your team, you generate success, right? So it is, I think, a really key foundation. I've never thought about it, right? I've never thought, am I acting fairly today? It's not something that I've actually thought about. But then maybe, Neil, that's because it depends on the kind of person you are as to how easily fairness comes in the things you do all the time.
And would you know if you're being fair or not? Because actually, it probably needs to be feedback from someone else,
Mm,
rather than your opinion.
mm,
But I looked up the dictionary definition of fair when we sort of decided we were going to look at this topic. So we did do a bit of preparation for today, because I did look in the dictionary. So treating people equally without favoritism and discrimination is the word fair. And that's really interesting. And like, imagine a leader that treats people equally without favoritism and discrimination. Would that make them a great leader? Does a leader need to be fair and treat people without favoritism and discrimination to be a good leader?
mm.
What do you think?
Well, what do you mean by equally? Because if you look at equally, you and I know, you drive people to maximize their potential. So someone's potential is not the same as somebody else's potential.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say equally, your expectations of an individual need to be for as good as they can be. Now, that might be slightly less than somebody else, but that doesn't mean they're not doing their best. That doesn't mean they're not trying to improve on a daily basis. So equally, you need to look at that as well and say, crazy this, are you being fair when you're trying to be equal?
And actually, can you drive a business forward? Can you be an executive driving a business forward and be fair? Aren't people who are fair people who wear sandals and corduroy trousers and have long hair and beards?
Sounds a bit soft, doesn't it? Being fair sounds a bit soft.
It does sound a bit soft in corporate world or in entrepreneurial world. Have you got time to be fair as a business?
Yeah, no, I agree. It could come across as it gets in the way of progress, right? This is mollycoddling and all that. We haven't got time for that, right? We've got targets to hit, we've got customers to please. But I think if it's a foundation of the way you operate, it doesn't have to be seen as a weakness. It could be seen as just a principle that you operate to. And by the way, if as a leader you're fair, I'd like to believe that those that will report directly to you, if you're in a senior position, so you've got managers reporting to you, are they fair? Because leading by example is much more important than leading by direction, right?
So is there a formula for how you could be I'm just thinking this is a rhetorical question, I guess, but is there a formula for being a fair leader? So if you did this, and this, bit like, if you want to be a good sales leader, there are certain things you need to do to get to your sales number.
Yeah.
But so is fair is what's the recipe for being a fair leader?
I think you hit it earlier, right? Because one of the things you said was you need to have somebody else to also be part of that or to sound it off against. And I know in my time, I've always had somebody that I would have checked it with. So whether it was my HR leader or my comms leader or my sales leader, right? That we'd have checked that together so that you could tell me whether I'm being fair and I could tell you whether I think you're being fair, because you need someone else to just sense check that for you. Otherwise, I don't think you've got any calibration. Where's your calibration?
And I think it's like a balance, and balance keeps coming into my head when we talk about fair. It's having a balanced view of and what's right for the business, what's right for the individuals, what's right for the customers, what's right for the stakeholders. So I guess it's taking input and input and understanding each point of view of all the elements of the business, to be able to make because okay, so what's the alternative? If you look at the reverse of it, what's the alternative? The alternative would be, I know all the answers, I don't need any input from anyone, I'll make the decisions. Of a bit like PP said in his dictators don't need to worry about fairness, they operate through fear and uncertainty.
Yeah.
So I know I'm right, I'm going to push my way forward, so I haven't got time for fairness, everyone's going to come with me because I'm the boss. So I guess if you haven't got that balance of opinions from everyone and sounding board, like you said, then how can you be fair?
I think that would work. I think if you're looking for short-term results, that would probably work, right? I'm the boss. This is how we're going to do it. This is what I say, because we'll hit some of those objectives. We'll hit the business objectives, possibly, but there might be some casualties to that. And the casualties to that might be employee satisfaction or people development, right? You might not develop the right people because you won't move any of your good people along because you want to keep them here to help deliver the results. So I think short term, that approach would probably work. You and I probably know some leaders that took that approach, right? And it worked short term. But long term, did it by loyalty? Did it by employee satisfaction? And did it by a robust business that can go from year to year to year to year to support your clients?
So it's interesting. I think, and you said that you get if you take an action now, it might not have an impact. And I guess I was thinking back to my time with the military. You might not have time to make a fair, balanced decision in an urgent situation.
Let's all gather around before we decide if we're going over the hill.
Everyone's opinion on this before we decide what we're going to do. In a situation which needs a decision quickly, it doesn't mean you're making and again, I think this comes down, you said it at the beginning, right? It depends on who you are. So I think if it comes down to, if you're making this decision for the good of the situation, for the good of the business, or the good of the troop or the platoon or whatever, then it doesn't matter whether it's a right or wrong decision. If you're making it from the right place, then it's probably a fair decision at that point in time with the knowledge you've got.
Yeah.
But yeah. So so it's interesting because to have balance takes time.
Yeah.
To have that balanced input to be fair takes time. So therefore you have to invest that time to get that balanced view.
Or you could come back round. So you could take the decision because you've got to get it done now. But that means you've got to wash up. You've got to come back round and explain why we did what we did. You've got to explain that it had to be done quickly, and so there was a need to act. And then you could consider how people feel about that and smooth those rough edges off as you go through, rather than just walk away from it and say, we did it, end of story, live with it. So I don't think having to make a quick decision means that you can't also still try and involve some fairness after the fact. That's still reasonable. Personal view.
Yeah, and actually that's just a good example of good leadership anyway, which is, we did this, did we learn from it? What do we get from it?
Yeah.
I think there's like two types of styles that people typically have as leaders. There's kind of the caring, people-focused type leader, and then there's the business-driven, numbers-driven, driving the business forward type leader. And if one of them is probably less fair, and the other one's probably too fair. So I guess the great leaders are the ones that can drive the business forward, but be fair to their people, their customers, their stakeholders at the same time.
Yeah, you're right. It's just made me think of an example, right? It's just made me think of an example where I remember the business was doing okay and we had a really tough quarter and we didn't deliver the result on the quarter. It's the first time we hadn't delivered the result on the quarter in 15 quarters, right? So I remember it was a huge thing. The main reason we hadn't delivered that was the bad judgment of one of my direct reports. And I remember having that conversation with them when all the dust had cleared and sat down and did. Now, was I being fair? I was being fair to the business and to all the people who had done absolutely everything they could do to deliver the right result. But this individual had let something slip, right? So did I feel like I was being fair? In the round and on balance, yes. I had to take a tough stance with that individual, right? Which, by the way, ultimately cost them their job months later, by the way. But it was the right thing in being fair to the business and the rest of the people. So that's another thought. You've got to think about the communities and the things that you're being fair to. Comes right back to what you said earlier, Neil. It's this balance. You've got to be able to get that balance.
And actually what you've just talked about there, a good example is, are you being fair if you are tough with someone? And actually, is it fair to not tell someone when they're when they're not delivering or when something's not going right? Is it fair that you only tell them at the 12-month review rather than at the time it's happening?
Yeah.
You know, I see that time and time again. I work, you know, with so many of the businesses I work with, where the only time the employee knows they're doing a good job or a bad job is once a year.
Yeah.
When they have a formal review.
Yeah.
Because most businesses don't have a process of feedback.
Yeah.
And actually, even with customers, most of the businesses I work with, they have like an annual review, if you're lucky, with the customers.
Yeah.
And they'll find out once a year whether the customer thinks they're doing a good job or a bad job.
Yeah.
So is it fair on the employee or the customer that you don't know whether you're doing it well or doing it badly as you're going through the year?
What I would say, by the way, is that topic you just raised there, I think, is the subject of a chat for you and I next time or in the days to come, right? You know, the whole thing about feedback, the whole thing about, you know, how to set up if somebody's performing well. Who are you being least fair to if you don't give them that tough message? The person themselves. You've let them believe for 11 and a half months that they're doing a great job,
Mm-hmm.
and you only tell them on month 12. You probably also made decisions through that 12 months about that person or about things that involve that person because you've already made the prejudgment, but you haven't shared it with them. They could have improved, but you didn't tell them that you felt there was a place for them to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been least fair to them.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, if you think at the moment, it's a really tough time. And some people are receiving, they're receiving calls that says, you know, you're on a list. You're on a list, whatever company you're in, there are people who are, I was listening to Radio 5 Business this morning, you know, that's the one that's on early in the morning.
Yeah.
And they were talking about there's a lot of at-risk conversations going on at the moment.
Yeah, huge.
And is it fair that some of those people will be surprised to be having that conversation because no one's given them any feedback during that, and there's lots of reasons for it and everybody's in a different scenario.
Yeah.
But is it fair that is something that people are surprised about because they've not been given any feedback on their role and how they're doing?
At a point where I could do nothing to change that now.
Yeah.
I can do nothing to change. If you'd have told me that 11 months ago, I may have done something different, behaved differently, added value differently, that I wouldn't be in scope now of the at-risk. But you didn't tell me that, right? You let me get to that place and then said, sorry, you missed target. So
yeah. So it's not fair leadership to
no.
We keep coming back to this word fair because the other thought that's going through my head, which is slightly going off topic, but so what? It's our zoomcast. Is there a responsibility of the employee to also find out from their leader how they're doing as well?
100%. 100%. Did you and I never feel the responsibility to know how we were doing or to ask how we were doing? We may not have acknowledged other people's point of view, but was it fair for us to? Yeah, absolutely right. I think there's I'd say equal responsibility to keep it,
yeah, so
balanced.
because you've got to, yeah, and you know, when I'm coaching leaders, it's a big part of what you need to do. And this, I guess, this comes back to fairness, but it also comes back to last week we talked about communication, and it's this creating the environment where it's okay for your employees to have that conversation with you.
Yeah.
So they know that whatever you say to them, you're going to treat it in a fair and balanced way.
Yeah.
And actually that comes to a really, really important point about being a fair leader, actually, is how do you create an environment where that feedback, that listening is okay. It's okay to go and ask, because you know, like they say, when the Queen turns up at an army base, it just smells of paint.
Yeah.
Because and everything, the grass is painted, the fences are painted, and everything's perfect. And that's how she thinks the world is. She thinks the world smells of paint. Well, that's what they used to say in the military.
Yeah.
So if a leader doesn't create the right environment, all he's ever going to get told is good news.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, look, I think it comes back to last week's as well, right? Communication. If you're keeping your team involved in the business and they understand what's happening and they feel like the business is theirs as well as yours, then they would want to have the right environment. They would want to think about how they could improve. By the way, this fair treatment isn't a top-down treatment. Being fair goes both ways, right? You need to be fair to me as a leader that I might have to do things to keep the business performing. You might need to be fair to me as your boss, that I have to say things to you to help your performance or to help our performance. I think it works both ways, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting, actually, that the thought that just came into my mind is about ego. So you can't be fair and be thinking about yourself. You've actually got to be thinking about the bigger picture, the bigger good, and have that in the front of your mind, not what's in this for me or how can I represent myself best here.
Yeah. No.
As an employee, it's got to be not what's in this for me and why is my boss doing this, being fair with understanding what the business situation is.
Yeah.
And how what I'm doing is impacting that or why those decisions are being made.
It's interesting, isn't it? When we first saw those comments from PP, and thank you, PP, for the comments, because look what you've just done for the last, what we at, 25 minutes or something? I don't know. Did we think there was enough material in there to discuss this topic? But it's really interesting when you look at how it forms a foundation in the business and the team and the way that you work. The only thing left in my head, Neil, on this one is this something about the kind of person you are? If you're fair in your approach at business or as a leader, is it because you are a fair person? So is this a behavior? Is it an attribute? Is it a trait? Is it a part of your makeup? What do you think?
Well, that's a bit like the question. It's a bit like the question of, you know, can anyone be an inspirational leader, or is it in their DNA? So, you know, when you wake up in the morning, does your mindset go to the right thoughts that make you inspirational, or does your mindset go to the right thoughts that make you fair? So my suggestion would be to that is there are some people where it will come more naturally, and there'll be lots of reasons for that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're a people person.
Yeah.
It just means that they are prepared to have a balanced view about how they operate and how they engage, being fair to your customers and not dominating your customers, having a balanced view. What do your customers need versus what profit do we need out of our customers? So I think there are some people that wake up and it's in their DNA because they naturally have, and there are some people who operate in that way because they get the best result. They don't think about I'm being fair here. They just do it because that's the way to get the best result.
Yeah.
Because you cannot be a leader. You can be a manager. You can be a dictator, but you can't be a leader if people don't follow you and you're not leading in and to lead in a direction. I think the answer to the question that we posed at the beginning is, do you need to be fair to be a great leader? I think we're getting to the point which kind of says, actually, it's a really, really important trait, and fairness, or being a fair leader and having that balance, is really important. So I think in answer to your question, I think, is it in someone's DNA? Some people will find it more natural, and others will have to be more conscious about the way they approach it.
Yeah. If we come back to that question, do you need to be fair to be a good leader? No, you don't. But do you want to be a better leader than you otherwise could have been? Then yeah. So if you're not fair, can you be a good leader? You can be a reasonable leader, but would that last long term? And do you get the full respect of all of your people? So I think I should have to change what I said. Can you be a good leader? No, not really, but you can get by. But you can be so much better if you are, personally.
Yeah. And you know, my mind always goes to, when we're talking about these things, and I think at some point we'll probably have to do something in this podcast, zoomcast, where we look at leaders who are in the news and have a conversation. Have a non-political conversation about leadership.
Yeah.
Because my mind does go to some of the people who are in leadership roles out there, and do they operate with fairness as a skill set that they are demonstrating and using?
Yeah.
And I think some do and some don't.
I think there's a few examples we can look at of that, and then that might create one or two comments back here, actually, if we take a point of view.
Yeah. But if there are leaders that people feel that would be good for us to talk about in a leadership role, not interested in political views or religious views, but more interested in their leadership style.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested in having that discussion on one of these sessions.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of just about wrapping up now, aren't we?
I think we're there. Yeah, I think we're there for today. Yeah.
So, any final thoughts from you?
No, look, as I said, thank you, PP, for the thoughts. Others, please give us some other thoughts if there's other things you'd like to hear. Neil and I got some ideas for future. We've also been talking about guests, so you might want to get ready for that, right? We might be thinking about some guests to bring on. You might want to volunteer and tell us why you think you'd be a good guest on the Zoomcast. But hey, we'd be very happy to do that. Or
if there's someone you think would be a great guest for us to have on and ask their view on leadership, or you'd like to hear their view on leadership, then we'll try and get them on. Yeah. But no, please keep your thoughts coming, keep your comments coming on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Please give us a thumbs up, in the thing below, and subscribe if you want to get these through each week. But no, thanks a lot for your feedback, Albert. Thanks a lot for today.
That's all right. You're welcome.
A fair and balanced view of of the topic of fairness.
Thanks for your time, Neil. Good to do, actually.
We'll catch up next week.
Have a great weekend. Cheers, guys. Take care.